Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Henson, co-founder of the Prostate Network, and I got a couple of really awesome guys here with us today to record a video for you guys to give you some insights on some true survivor advocates tips and some inspiring things they've been doing. So let me just turn it over to Joe. He's the man with Man Up to Cancer. Tell us a little bit about your journey, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Steve. So I am a stage 3B colorectal cancer survivor, but I was also the caregiver for my dad who passed away from prostate cancer a few months before I was diagnosed with my own form of cancer. I'm also the COO of manuptocancer.org. And Man Up to Cancer just inspires men to not to self-isolate during a cancer treatment and survivorship. And we're just trying to change the way how men go through cancer. And that is our reason for being the organization that we have. And we do this through several programs. We have a chemo care backup program that we provide essentials for men going through treatment. Don Hegelson, who's with us, leads our chapter group program. We have about 50 chapter groups throughout the United States and Canada to offer emotional support through that program. The guys have meetups. They meet for coffee. They go to a game together, hang out together. And our other program is one we just recently had our annual Gathering of Wolves retreat, in which we had about 150 men show up at a campground up in the Pocono Springs, Pocono Springs Camp in the Poconos Mountains of Pennsylvania, and just had a great weekend of just hanging out together and supporting one another, swapping stories, and had a lot of laughter and a few tears. But just really have an opportunity to meet up with someone who's going through this journey together. So that's what Man After Cancer is all about.
That's awesome. The guys that get support and connect with others, they do better emotionally and physically. And
Yeah,
those who don't ever try to do this alone. This stuff is way too hard, guys. If
exactly.
you know people that are
Yep,
going through
exactly.
it,
You're exactly right.
get them connected. If not through our organizations, through something, at their church somewhere. So,
Yeah,
and I understand, Don, you've got some really awesome news
exactly.
today that maybe you could share with us.
Well, yeah, and it's timely that you're talking about how men need to get the support that they need, right? And typically over time, men have not done that. Men are not the best at managing their own health and reaching out for others. But quickly, yes. So my name is Don Helgeson. I'm a stage 3B prostate cancer patient right now. And yesterday and going into this morning, I've been getting news that my PSA is undetectable after most recently taking radiation treatment and hormone therapy treatment. And what's really awesome about this morning is my daughter told me to tune into the radio station about 10 minutes before this podcast was being recorded. And she had done a tribute to me for the fact that looks like I'm heading toward NED. And so very emotional for me. I was tearing up as I logged in, and yeah. So a bit about myself. I'm from Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. I'm a three-time cancer survivor. Most recently is prostate cancer, and I joined the leadership team for Man Up to Cancer about 2 years ago. And in my role, and this is why I was saying it was timely, is Trevor Maxwell and Joe Bullock approached me to see if I'd be interested in being the chapter and meetup coordinator for Man Up to Cancer. And at the time, the group had already been active for 2.5 years at that point, but most of the time it had been active. It had been active during COVID-19. So our group was a virtual group for the most part, but we were seeing in earliest parts of 2022 that men were actually starting to get together for coffees in their local areas when they realized that they lived close enough to each other. Coffees, maybe going for a beer or going for lunch. And so when I first met Trevor Maxwell and Joe Bullock in person in September of 2022 at the very first annual Gathering of Wolves, like, we need to harness this. So that's where my job came in. And over the next, well, it's 2 years now, we have, as Joe said, 50 chapters, not only in North America, but we've also got a chapter in the United Kingdom. We've also got a chapter in Europe. And we call the transatlantic chapter. It kind of encompasses all of Europe. And so we're seeing, like, last month, we had 90 meetups take place within our group all over the world. And yeah, so it's growing at a significant amount. But what
Yep.
we've seen, especially since the last Gathering of Wolves that took place, as Joe said, in Pennsylvania earlier this month, is that the guys are leaving this event, and we had close to 150 men at this last event. The guys
Yeah.
are meeting up. They're leaving that event, and they're all fired up, wanting to meet up with the guys that live close to them. So that's my role, is to give them that opportunity. But if they can't meet up in person, we also give them a virtual opportunity similar to what we're doing here.
Yeah, we do that. We encourage everybody at our meetings to exchange iPhones, buy each other coffee, that kind of stuff. That's what it's all about. You know, there's a couple other things that we haven't hit on yet that we always try to encourage, and that we call it stacking the deck in your favor. And that if you get diagnosed, this is going to be like the most important time in your life to really try to do anything you can to improve your health with the diet and the exercise, because you know the cancer diagnosis is it's depressing, you know, and that's the best things you can do to combat the mental health aspects of a cancer diagnosis. And then the outcomes too, the science is getting clearer and clearer that you can especially with like androgen deprivation treatments you're talking about, you're taking, you know, if you take that without exercising and without cleaning up your diet, it's going to do a number to you. But if you really go at it and really hit the heart, not just kind of walk around the block, you know, we encourage, you know, if that's where you're at, if that's a step forward, walk around the block, you know, but then make that 2 and make that 3 trips, but to really do some strenuous stuff. If you can really up your game on that, you can basically kind of overcome the side effects of some of these treatments and improve your outcomes. And you know, there's so much cancer diagnosis that is out of your control. You know, you've got to just kind of lay there and take it. But that stuff's completely in your ballpark, right? You get to decide what to do with at the grocery store.
For sure. And I maybe, Joe,
Yeah.
I'll speak to this because I'm actually on
Yeah.
hormone right now. And it's so being a 3-time cancer survivor, I've tried my best over the years. And I'm only 54 years old, by the way, by the time I've had all my cancer diagnosis. And I'm also a Lynch syndrome patient. So that's a bit of a side note on that. But I knew going into you know, my later, you know, like my 40s and 50s, that I needed to try to stay fit and watch what I ate, just because I didn't know what was coming around the corner. And sure enough, you know, when I was 50, turning 51 years old, I got diagnosed with prostate cancer. So immediately I ended up choosing surgery as my form of treatment. But you're right. Like if I had gone into that with other health issues, it would have been a lot tougher for the recovery. And then, you know, just over 2 years after my surgery, I ended up having the recurrence. So I immediately was, you know, the treatment option for me there was going to be radiation and ADT. And so again, I hit that with the ground running, being fit and eating properly. But I have managed to go the last 6 months without gaining any weight, because and it's simple things. Sometimes it's just going for daily walks. I do a lightweight routine, but it's just staying active, because you're absolutely 100% right. It would be easy to gain weight, but it's just it's also the mood swings, those types of things. Because I'm actually exercising, and we all know that exercise also affects your mental health, right? I start the day with that.
Yeah.
And I have not had very many significant issues at all. And I kind of joke that I've only yelled at one flag person so far on the highway during my 6 months of ADT. But for the most part, I've managed to control it with health, with fitness and diet.
Awesome. You know, and something else we haven't hit on that it's often overlooked, and that is, you know, sharing your story with your family. You know, I had a family history and I wasn't told about it. And if I would have known, man, they said, like, I could have figured out mine maybe 10, 15 years prior. And with cancer, it's all about early detection. And so it's a hard thing to talk about, but I understand, Joe, you had a story about family history too, didn't you?
I did. So how I found out my dad had prostate cancer is we actually had the same doctor, and he was going through my family history. And granted, this was back in 1996, and he was kind of going through my history, and he noticed that I had some like those high blood pressure in my family, but really no other cancer history. And he was like, I noticed you don't have prostate cancer in your chart. And I was like, well, there's no one in my family that has prostate cancer. He got really quiet. He's like, you need to ask your dad, because he was also my dad's doctor. So I know there's all these protocols that he probably broke that day, but that's how I found out my dad had prostate cancer. Now, my dad wasn't happy about that, but my argument to my dad was, you have 3 sons.
No.
It's you should have told us. Like, you have 3 sons, and we were all, I was in my early 40s. My older brothers were in their 50s and late in mid 50s. And I'm like, they should be getting PSA tests. They should be getting DREs. Like, we need to know this, and he apologized. He understood. He wasn't happy about it because he was one of these guys that really kept to himself, really didn't want help from anyone, and would barely let me help him through hospice, which he did finally at the end of his life. But that's how I found out. And I actually had my first DRE when I was 44, because my doctor was like, I don't think you have prostate cancer, but the fact that your dad has it, I think we need to go and get you start getting you screened. And I did that day, and then I did another one I think it was at age 50, like 5 years later. But I get my PSA checked regularly now, and luckily all my numbers have remained low. I have no detection of it. But yeah, that's how I found out that prostate cancer was in my family.
Yeah, it happens too often. I understand why guys don't want to like talk about it, because talking to other men that don't have it, or talking to other people that don't have it, you can't really relate, right? So it's kind of easy to
Yeah.
say, but at Thanksgiving and Christmas, you gotta at least let this thing out. That's why we give away our phone holders and our tools. We want to give a gift, we
Yep.
call it, to every survivor. So when we're out at like health fairs or whatever, we're like, if you know a survivor, take them one of these, and it's a gift with a little subtle little trick to it, because it's got the blue ribbon on it, and it's gonna say, it's got our message on it, so it kind of outs their secret, is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And that's, I mean, going through treatment myself, when I went through treatment myself for my colon cancer, I started to understand my dad. I understood why he was so in defiance of going through treatment and dealing with it, and once I went through it myself. And I really understood how it felt to get into that mindset and in that isolation, and how much I had to fight against it. So, really coming out of it and being Ned, I really wanted to pursue the idea of helping men not be self-isolated and ask for support. And that's when I met Trevor Maxwell back in late 2019, and really joined him when he started Man Up to Cancer. So that really set me in a trajectory to really offer men the support that we offer today.
Yeah,
because of what my dad
we
went
started
through.
too. It was I met Caesar, and we thought we were the only
Yeah.
two guys that ever had. We didn't even know what a prostate cancer was. We thought we were literally like the only two
Yeah.
guys. And then when we like survived, we're like, okay, we're gonna pay it forward. What are we gonna do? And
Yeah.
well, let's just not make it random luck that guys have a place to go. Let's get them a safe place. And
Yeah.
then we found out we weren't the only ones. This is a kind of a big thing.
Yeah.
And I understand that early in your journey, you got somehow randomly connected with my best friend Caesar.
I did. I think I was seeking support from my dad and just randomly ran into him, and we just started messaging back and forth. I didn't realize the full connection until probably, when I saw your postings and you brought him up, and I thought, yeah, that's who I connected with. And we messaged back and forth about what my dad was going through. And I think this was even before I was diagnosed with cancer. So it was a few years ago. But I had always followed his journey throughout the years, until he sadly passed away. But he was an amazing individual.
Yeah, that's right. Caesar always had our backs. So
oh yeah,
like
that's
Caesar.
amazing.
I have tried to define what is be like Caesar, and it's he was just there for everybody. He just met people where they were at, and he just genuinely cared, and he was nice to every person that crossed his path. I don't care whether it was at the gas station, whether it was on Facebook, whether it was at work, at the gym, everywhere he just was so real for everybody. And in the cancer world, he was a true icon, man. And
he was. I think I think you were at a game with Caesar or something. Did y'all go to like a baseball game together?
Yeah, we've been doing the Royals games. That's one of our
Yes.
signature events, and we got
Yep.
started that way. I got to sit in the Buck O'Neill seat with him, which if you guys are
Yep.
baseball fans for the Royals, it's an honorary
Yep.
seat that goes to people doing really great stuff, and it allowed
Yep.
us to. It happened to be on Father's Day, and it happened to be on a nationally televised game, and so we put
Yep.
our little message together in pictures and words, and they just broadcast it all, literally everywhere on Father's
That's
Day.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
yeah, we just shared our story that way, and we've been doing
Yeah,
it.
Don.
We've done it like 7 or 8 times now. It's almost
Yep.
it's up to it takes a bunch of miracles for
Yep.
it to come together.
Yep.
But fortunately, the last 2 years, all of the planets aligned, and we were able to host that game. And it's so special because it's not just a group of survivors; it's the doctors, it's the nurses, it's baseball players, it's everybody, and it just normalizes. It's not going to a meeting at a hospital or community center. It's going to the ballpark, which dudes can go to the ballpark.
Yep.
You know, the sons will
Yep.
buy their dad a ticket and
Yep.
take them to the game when there's going to be the other survivors and that table set up, and they can come hang out and visit with others.
Yep. I mean, Don had a similar experience. I'll let Don share. Recently, we had 2 of our groups were at games on the same day. So I'll let Don share about that.
Actually, it was
About the
3
recent-
groups.
It was 3. What? It was 3.
On a
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah, and it was, we had groups in New York City at a Yankees game. We had a group in San Francisco, and we also had a group in Denver. And they all posted within, I think, 24 hours of each other being at these events, and it just absolutely blew our minds. And I immediately texted Joe and Trevor, and I said, and with the photos of these guys meeting up, and they're like, I just said, look what you guys have created. Look what's happening. Look what we've harnessed. And the smiles on these guys' faces were just unbelievable. But yeah, and that's why Joe and I do what we do. And I know you touched, what's funny, you touched on earlier, Steve, about family history, and I should have known more than anybody with Lynch syndrome. And for those of the don't know what Lynch syndrome is a genetic defect where basically my body has trouble repairing cells that are turning into cancer. And so I've had, in my lifetime, I've had melanoma, I've had colorectal cancer in my 30s, and most recently prostate. But I had an uncle who had prostate cancer, and he died from it. And when I was 50 years old, I still had no idea what, and you mentioned it earlier, I didn't even know what a prostate was, what it did. And I couldn't have told you where it was in my body. And I didn't even know at the time that there were simple tests, whether it was a digital rectal exam or a PSA test, that could have started the ball rolling to get this to get detected. And ultimately, that's what ended up happening for me. Is I worked as a police officer here in Canada, and in a basically a male-dominated area. And the joke was, when you went in for your annual checkup, are you going to get the rubber glove? And so most guys didn't bother doing it because it was like a macho thing. Like, why would I get that done? And so I didn't either. And so when I was 50 years old, fortunately, my doctor ticked the box for a PSA test. And that's why I'm still here today, almost 5 years later, because he ticked that box. My PSA was off the charts as a 50-year-old. And then since that time, and this is kind of the craziness of where it's all turned into, is that I wear t-shirts now that say, what's your PSA, or anyone, and I have a tattoo that's obviously a prostate cancer ribbon, and I'm trying to get people to talk about it regardless of their age, and whether it's men or women, because we also know that women are also a huge target audience for us as prostate cancer survivors, because let's face it, men don't want to talk about it for the most part. So, but the women will, and the women all have, fathers, brothers, and husbands that they're going to be listening to our story. So anyway, it kind of rambled on a bit there, but ultimately getting prostate cancer was something that probably was unavoidable for me, but I probably could have detected it a little bit earlier. And now I'm just taking that message out there to anyone who listens, saying, hey, if it could happen to me at 50, it could happen to you at 50.
Yeah, the other thing is, we've been talking here to the prostate cancer and all the men with cancer and stuff like that. But we also, I think, should tell a couple messages to all the younger guys, right? The 20-year-old, 30-year-old guys. You're gonna get possibly 3-4 new trucks in your life if you're lucky. You're only getting one body. and you better care for it better than a new truck.
Yeah.
You would not let your new truck run low on oil. Don't skip going to physicals, right? You got to go every year, not when you're sick, not when your knee hurts. You got to go and develop a relationship with a doctor that you can trust. You can maybe stick with them for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? And they get to know you and you listen to their advice. And if you do that, you are going to get so many extra years and quality years out of this. And you have to do that because there's people that love you. And if you don't take care of yourself, it's kind of like being an asshole to them because they don't want to see you suffer and you don't have to. So if you will take better care of your body than your new truck, you're going to take and they'll have a long, happy life. So we want all those guys out there to not get in our club. Our club's way too big. We're glad we've got Man Up to Cancer and Prostate Network and all the other great orgs out there. But we would just as soon be put out of business by you guys taking better care of yourselves out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
hey, guys, thank you so
Exactly
much
right.
for coming on here. I look forward to connecting with you over the years, and I commend you for your awesome work, man.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank
Bye.
you for having us.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Bye.